talks. Where does it leave the region now?
Well, we've heard from the UK's Defence Secretary, interestingly not Prime Minister Boris Johnson, in the House of Commons, in Parliament today, their first day back after Christmas, updating MPs on the escalating situation in Iran, the escalating tensions, and setting out the government's stance. It's the first time we've actually heard from a member of the government, the Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, reiterating that call for a de-escalation, urging, as he put it, Iran to take a different path, return to normal behaviour and resist the urge to retaliate. He also once again called for calm, saying that while the UK supported the US's right to self-defence, any further conflict would be in nobody's interest. So that sort of gives you an idea of exactly the tightrope that the UK is trying to walk here between the US and Iran, very much seeing themselves as a mediator. As you said, the Foreign Secretary in Brussels today to meet with his EU counterparts, and he'll head to Washington later this week to try and to meet with Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State there, to try and ease tensions, because of course the main concern for the UK is their troops and civilian personnel in Iraq. They have hundreds there, and we heard the UK Defence Secretary today saying they have taken urgent measures to protect Britain's interests in Iraq and its people. Helicopters and ships are on standby. All non-essential personnel have been moved out of Iraq, and a crack team of military planners have been sent in to draw up contingency plans should an immediate evacuation of troops and personnel, civilians, be needed should Iran follow through on its continued threats for reprisals. Now, that's something that the UK, of course, do not want. They still want to find a diplomatic way through this crisis, not least because of what they call the continued threat of Daesh. Their main objective is to keep the coalition forces in Iraq, which we heard the Defence Secretary say, coalition forces, UK forces, are there at the invitation of the country. They want to keep them there so they don't miss or threaten any of the hardline gains they've made against Daesh. And we've heard from the Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary, the Defence Secretary, all reiterating that point, that the UK has unwavering commitment to Iraq's sovereignty and, of course, the stability and its fight against Daesh. It feels that any withdrawal of troops will be exploited by IS, and of course the main concern comes from the fact that Iraq's MPs voted or backed a non-binding vote to expel foreign troops from the country, and the UK say they are still in talks with the Prime Minister, with their counterparts in Iraq, to see exactly what that will mean. So the UK's stance very much still one of mediation, of diplomatic solution, trying to stop Tehran from reacting, stop Trump from overreacting. But we've already seen a lot of criticism here today in Parliament from the opposition, from MPs, against the government's response, saying that it is the government are scared to stand up to Donald Trump because, of course, of those post-Brexit trade talks that are looming.
And that's what I want you to talk to you about, Holly, the public sentiment around this. Anybody seeking re-election, I'd imagine, would not get any support in trying to talk war, but also, as you say, they need to be bold enough to place the accountability where it needs to be placed. And we saw US President Donald Trump making some comments which some believe are in themselves provocative.
Definitely, and there's been a lot of criticism, accusations already levelled at the government over its response, in particular to the US and the legality of this attack, and whether the evidence that the US claims it has for the assassination of the Iranian general does stack up. We heard Ben Wallace talking about that in length in the House of Commons today. He did say that he feels that there is enough evidence from what he's seen. He was sure to caveat his statement with the fact that he hasn't, of course, seen all the evidence that the US intelligence will have. But as far as he's concerned, what he's seen there is a big enough case for self-defence, and the UK will always support a country's right to defend itself. He said that the US has had many opportunities in Iran, has been attacked there several times, and could have actually retaliated numerous times, but has chosen restraint. And therefore, as the UK sees it, the US was defending self-defense. It was self-defense on the part of the US, and the UK will always defend that. So in terms of how the UK and the US relationship now continues, this is of course a testing time for the UK government, for Boris Johnson in relation to Trump. The opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn very much condemning the attack in Parliament today, calling it dangerous and saying that we don't just go around assassinating foreign leaders, he said, without a clear foreign threat. It is illegal, questioning that legality, questioning the evidence. And Boris Johnson, when he returns to Parliament, appears in Parliament tomorrow, will no doubt face more pressing questions from MPs in regards to that, whether he is scared in many ways to stand up to Trump because of those post-Brexit trade talks.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Holly Hudson, correspondent in London. And of course, we will be speaking to an analyst later on to talk about what the greater ramifications of this